Another big project happening in our north.
About 5 years ago, there was what I thought was a harebrained scheme to build the world's biggest renewable energy project in the middle of nowhere, 200 kilometres east of Port Hedland. It was going to involve 1,200 or something wind turbines, each of them 260 metres high, and thousands of solar panels covering an area 10 times the size of Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore.
It was going to generate an amount of electricity equal to 80% of WA's entire annual power consumption and cost $13.2 billion.
It's a lot of quiche, you know, like a cake.
Called the Asian Renewable Energy Hub. The power was going to be sent via subsea cable to the Indonesian island of Java. And I thought it was total and utter bullshit.
But the only power source capable of generating 1.21 gigawatts of electricity is a bolt of lightning.
But it was backed by some serious players, so I kept an eye on it. A company called CWP Energy Asia, which already invested in Australian wind farms, and privately owned Intercontinental Energy both had a 45% stake. And a Danish turbine manufacturer called Vestas had 10%.
What happened with it?
Well, that was in 2017. A year later, it came out that Macquarie Bank was also investing in it. Now, there's a reason that Mac Bank is called the Millionaire's Factory. They pick winners.
You tell a man, Blue Horseshoe loves Anacon steel.
Macquarie came on as the project bumped up the budget from $13 billion to $22 billion and boosted proposed capacity. 7.5 gigawatts would come from wind turbines and 3.5 gigawatts from solar panels.
Sounds like a lot.
Enough to send Marty McFly back to 1985. Then in 2019, they expanded it again from a total of 11 gigawatts to 15. Now that's more than Victoria uses in a whole year. And they had just worked out that as well as sending power to Asia, they could sell it to the mining companies in the Pilbara, which often use dirty diesel generators. Sounded great, but nobody really thought they'd ever get environmental approval. They were going to need to clear just shy of 12,000 hectares of vegetation. That's 30 times the size of Kings Park. And the wind turbines were going to be just 26 k's from 80 Mile Beach and 13 kilometres from Mandorah Marsh. Both those areas of wetlands are internationally significant because they attract congregations of up to 500,000 migratory birds. But in May of 2020, the WA Environmental Protection Authority approved the project.
Birds are stupid.
Did you start believing it then?
I did. But then the project got cock-blocked by this guy. Scott Morrison's government said it posed an unacceptable risk to the wetlands.
So it's a dead duck?
That's what I thought. Sounded like the changes they'd have to make to get it through the feds would be too difficult. But apparently BP knows something that we don't.
Where do millions of jets, helicopters, planes, trains and trucks go when they're low on fuel? BP.
Because BP is now being tipped to take a 30% stake in the Asian Renewable Energy Hub and take over as operator. And instead of sending the electricity generated by all those solar panels and wind turbines down the wire to Asia, they're looking at using the juice to create green hydrogen, which would then be converted into ammonia for export. I have no idea how they actually do that.
Flux capacitor, fluxing.
There's an old saying in business journalism, if you want to get to the truth, follow the money. And right now, a lot of money is saying this thing is going to get up.
What's the money saying about St John Ambulance?
Michelle Fyfe is going down fighting, that's what it's saying. The boss of St John has been under the pump in recent weeks over poor response times. She's now come out and warned West Australians that as far as paramedics go, WA does in fact stand for wait a while. She's blaming three things. A sudden jump in the number of people ringing for an ambulance. We're hurting ourselves with spectacular efficiency at the moment. A record number of ambulances ramped outside EDs. That ties up crews because they can't drop a patient and run.
We got a bleeder! Keep the pressure on, keep it on.
And of course, COVID, which has seen 10% of her staff off the roster because they've got the bug and more stood down because they're isolating. The first two things are completely out of Michelle's control, but Health Minister Amber Jade Sanderson reckons Fyfe has herself to blame, at least partially, for the third. Amber Jade wants St John to relax close contact rules so ambos are in line with the rest of the health system, but St John didn't.
And I'd imagine that's pissed off the Health Minister.
Yes, very much so, and this at a time when a parliamentary committee is preparing to hand down a report that will likely recommend that St John be stripped of the contract to provide paramedicine services in WA so it can be brought in-house as a government service. Fyfe is being forced to play a political game. I reckon the government thinks she's out of her depth on this stuff because she's a former cop, not a bureaucrat per se. But the only place in WA where there's more backbiting and incestuous empire building than this place is this place. So it'll be an interesting matchup. Sanderson was aware she was upping the ante when she called out Fyfe's COVID policy last month, just as Fyfe was aware she was poking the bear by going on the front foot and warning about 000 delays.
The bear. The bear.
We all need to be aware that this display of sabre rattling is part of a much bigger picture. Amber Jade is a member of the left faction of the Labor Party. The left faction is controlled by the United Workers Union, where Amber Jade used to earn a living as Assistant Secretary. The UWU also counts Labor Upper House member Pierre Yang as a member. Pierre is chair of the parliamentary committee that is about to independently conclude that it's in the best interests of WA public health that the ambulance service is run by the government. That will mean thousands of ambulance officers become public servants, which will mean more members of the UWU, and those members will pay a lot more in union fees, and a lot of those fees will be donated to the Labor Party, which will use the money to get Amber Jade Sanderson and Pierre Yang re-elected at the next election.
You're always so cynical.
You know what they say. Always back self-interest because at least you know it's trying.
And a bit of self-interest in forming the feedback on last night's show.
On Up Late, we bag the shit out of everyone. Politicians, the Premier is full of crap. Bikies, every bikie who is pissed off at that legislation, which is to say every bikie, should have a little talk to old mate Dane next time they run into him. Business executives, Nev's on a leave of absence from those companies while Mike and John work out what to do. Billionaires. He's got $120 worth of blueberries and raspberries on the table. With that much roughage, he's going to be generating a few carbon emissions of his own. And it's just par for the course. But if you say this about the chief executive of one of the local footy teams, you've been CEO for 22 years, mate. Modern corporate governance doesn't tolerate that kind of tenure for a clean skin, let alone someone with as much baggage as you. People in WA lose their minds with indignation. Every one-eyed, thin-skinned Eagle supporter...
Is there another kind?
...seem to take offence at us reminding everyone that Trevor Nisbet has presided over 3 decades of criminality and scandal at the club.
What the hell's going on around here?
Fire extinguisher roller chair derby?
Okay.
And 12 hours after we did that, and in the middle of everyone saying it was so unfair to talk about the past because it was all in the past, this headline popped up. 2006 Premiership player Michael Braun hasn't only been hit with a violence restraining order, he's just been charged with breaching it 3 times. Another one for the scrapbook, Trev. I'm Ben Harvey. For more Up Late, click the subscribe button below.